I was super hyped when I found out that not only was one of my favourite artists of all time, Melanie Martinez, releasing her first album in 4 years after a long ass time of me thinking that she'd quit music or something. And I mean, can you blame me? She seemed to have disappeared off the face of the earth. But that the album would be accompanied by a full feature movie featuring every single track on the album on the exact same day. On YouTube. For free. I have loved Melanie Martinez for such a long time, and for a little while I was obsessed with her music. Her first album, Crybaby, is still one of my favourite albums of all time, and I listen to it so often that I know all the lyrics to every song, and my boyfriend pretty much does too, because he hears it so often because of me. A lot of the pictures that I used to draw when my drawing tablet was still working, and I wasn't crying every day while saving up for a new one. One day I'll get another one. Well, they were all based on various songs on the album in some way or another, mainly because I listened to it so damn much. I relate to a lot of the songs on the Crybaby album, mainly Crybaby, Pity Party, and Teddy Bear in relation to one of my exes. Melanie's voice is just so soothing and calming, but you can also feel her pain when she's singing about a difficult topic, and her music videos are... oh wow, you just gotta watch them. They're interesting and they are beautifully done. In fact, her music videos are the main reason why I was so hyped for her upcoming movie. Every video that she has made has been cinematic in their own ways, and she has directed every single one as well. They all have their own intricate stories within them, but with her kind of young girl dollhouse aesthetic. I cannot pronounce words today, haha! Which was always an interesting combination. The camera work is always amazing in my opinion, and her acting always seemed decent, even if we only got snippets of it from a 4 to 5 minute long video where she doesn't really speak. She has a very expressive face, actually. Overall, Melanie is very creative in her songwriting, music video concept creation, and general style. I was talking non-stop to my boyfriend about the album coming out and how hyped I was for the movie as well. In fact, I wouldn't shut up about it, and I feel kind of bad about it too. So when the day came and her album and movie dropped, I instantly downloaded K-12, the album, and excitedly listened to it on my long-ass journey to work. And I liked it. I just liked it. I didn't love it, I just liked it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it a lot. It felt very Melanie Martinez, but it also didn't feel as impactful as Crybaby was. But I figured that maybe if I watched the movie, then maybe I'd find a new appreciation for the album instead. I mean, hell, maybe if I listened to it a few times, then I'd grow to love it. I've listened to albums like that before, so that could just be the case. I just needed to watch the movie and keep listening to the album, and I would fall in love with it eventually. So, when I got home that day from work, I sat my boyfriend down and we watched K-12, the movie, together. I'd been hyping the film and album up for so long that he was just happy to see me happy, and he gladly watched it with me, despite not really knowing Melanie's work properly. I mean, he hadn't really seen her visual style before, so he was kind of in for a treat. He'd only really listened to her through me. And once we finished the movie, I instantly had an urge to make a video essay talking about it. And not in a good way, unfortunately. Before I go on, I need to give a little bit of a disclaimer. Like I stated at the beginning of the video, I absolutely adore Melanie Martinez, and I absolutely know what she's about. Her weird music videos and dollhouse aesthetic are some of the reasons that I adore her. So I don't want any comments talking about how I don't get her or that I'm just a hater, because I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone who considers Melanie one of my favourite singers and who is literally listening to the Crybaby album and K-12 as I write this script. She is amazing, but I also want to review this film in the most honest way that I can if I'm going to talk about it at all. Otherwise, what would be the point in making a review of it? And that's what I'm gonna do. I owe her that as a fan. If fans put their idols up on a pedestal and are never honest about their work, then they probably won't ever improve. And I really want Melanie to be the best that she can be, so I'm not going to be mean or disrespectful in the video, but I will be honest and critique her work as I would any other film made by someone who's clearly passionate about what they do and is talented in many ways, such as Melanie. And I'm not saying that I think Melanie will necessarily see this video, but I review movies that I don't think are exceptional. I guess that's the nice way of putting it. So, you know, this is what I do, and I felt like making a video about it, but I also don't want to be mean about it, so yeah. So, now that the Melanie stans have left their hate comments and buzzed off, let's get into it, shall we? Before I talk about the plot of this movie, it would be wrong of me not to mention the fact that this was Melanie's first attempt at writing and directing a full-length motion picture, meaning that she had little experience with this kind of thing going in. I have mentioned that she's directed her own music videos, but a music video and a movie are two completely different ballparks. And there are many ways in which the film is decent considering that fact, which I will bring up later. There are also so many movies that I've seen and even reviewed that are a million times worse than this, and they're from directors and writers who have that experience, who have made and written and directed movies before. So in that respect, it's actually quite impressive what she's done. But one thing that I'm not sure Melanie really thought about that much was the actual story of the movie. Because K-12's plot is confusing, to say the least. And not because Melanie has a very different way of displaying her song's messages and her visuals are very obscure, as they always are in her music videos, but because it doesn't really have a coherent story, so to speak. K-12 is supposedly about Melanie's character, who is named Crybaby, which, by the way, is a really nice callback to the previous album, and I genuinely love it. It's a little nugget for people who are already fans of her. And Crybaby has been sent to this totalitarian school where they brainwash students and borderline abuse them if they don't behave or basically do whatever the teachers tell them to do. But weirdly, this takes place in a universe where other life forms go to the school with her, like this blue guy, and where alien beings who can alter reality exist, and Crybaby is actually a part of that race of creatures, whatever they are. However, she's been sent to this school with no real reason other than to experience suffering, I guess? But it's not the most straightforward plot, and there are many holes in the story that are just not ignorable, even to the most average moviegoer. Like, it's kind of easy to follow when you see it initially. Crybaby wants to leave the school because the teachers and the other students treat her badly, and she wants to go back to her world, even though it shows at the beginning of the movie that she came from a normal house, and it also mentions her mother, who is clearly a human and an alcoholic, but whatever. But a lot of the progression of the story is very confusing. As an example, when the film moves from scene to scene, it's very unclear how it goes from one scene to the other, and why the characters went from, oh, I don't know, murdering the principal to playing tennis with magic bubbles and without actually hitting the ball. I mean, that is the most boring game of tennis I think I have ever witnessed in my life. I think it's best to describe the ways that the scenes transition is to say that it feels as though the movie is moving from one music video to another, rather than using the music in the movie to move the plot along and express how the characters feel. It almost feels as if Melanie wrote the songs before starting to write the script of the movie and just tried to find ways to insert the music into it. Which is entirely possible, but I would have thought that since she's been working on this movie and album for at least 4 years, it would be more stitched together and coherent than this. As an example, there's this scene where this boy who has a crush on Crybaby sees the ball that her and her friends were playing with at tennis, and then it cuts to the music video for the song Strawberry Shortcake. By the way, I love this song, and it is pretty damn good. But this transition makes no sense. For those of you who don't know, the song is about how growing up, Melanie felt as though she didn't know how to present herself as a girl, and she didn't know whether to put effort into her appearance or not because the boys would want to touch her if she did, but society was also pressuring her to dress a certain way while also punishing her for it. This is a message that a lot of girls can probably relate to. I know that I kind of can. Because, you know, growing up as a girl, I was kind of taught by people that you needed to show off your assets in order to, you know, get attention, if you know what I mean. And as a teenage girl, getting attention from boys is kind of the most important thing on the fucking planet. I mean, it wasn't really the most important thing for me, but it was kind of important. But then if you got too much attention, it became a problem because you're young and you're dumb and you don't really know how to deal with that kind of thing, and you don't really want to be full of cum at that age. I mean, the idea of people telling girls that we shouldn't dress provocatively while society tells girls that we have to be seen a certain way is kind of something that I would have disagreed with a couple of years ago when I was making anti-SJW content, but I do understand that a lot of girls do feel that way, and I know that I felt that way as a teenager, so it's a good message for a song, I think. I really like this song, and the music video is so well choreographed, and it looks gorgeous with the swimming scenes and Melanie dressed as a cake. I fucking love it. However, in the context of the movie, it doesn't make any sense. Because this guy hasn't even made it clear that he has a crush on Crybaby yet in the film, and he hasn't objectified her in any way. And, if I'm gonna be honest, neither has anyone else. She's been bullied, yeah, but no one had sexually objectified her in the movie so far, so this music video just felt very out of left field to me. It didn't help the story progress, it just confused me. How do you go from you and your friends playing tennis to your tennis ball being picked up by a random guy that you don't know to singing about how objectified you are? It just doesn't make any sense. Plus, this theme isn't even explored in the movie in any other scenes. Melanie could have just easily written a scene that had some boys perving on Crybaby and inserted the song there. That would have made so much more sense. Plus, it could have also made sense if she'd have used this song to spread the message of boys hurting girls to show affection when they're young, which falls in line with Melanie's views, since the boys are all mean to Crybaby. It could have fit perfectly like that. And it would have made a lot more sense. This is a massive issue that I found with the movie. The music video segments, as all of Melanie's music videos, are amazingly done. The cinematography is always great, the songs are bomb when accompanied by the visuals themselves are interesting, but they don't move the story along most of the time, which is what musicals are supposed to do. As a musical, it's the song's job to convey something to your audience, whether it be a character's emotions, plot points, or showing a character's actions that move the story along. I mean, hell, even High School Musical does this coherently, but this movie doesn't do that. Some of the music videos do kind of display Crybaby's feelings or move the plot along slightly, like The Principal, Wheels on the Bus, or Class Fight, but there are also quite a few that just seem shoehorned in, like Strawberry Shortcake, Show and Tell, and Teacher's Pet. In fact, the entire mini-story of Teacher's Pet is forgotten immediately after the song is finished, despite the fact that it ends in the teacher being fucking murdered. That kinda seems like an important plot point, but it also seems that Crybaby and her friends can just murder whoever they want and get away with it, even though they can't seem to escape the school for some reason. This is another issue I have with the plot. So, let me get this straight. Crybaby and her friends are a part of this race of creatures that can levitate others, blast people, get away with murder, including murdering the principal, and can make objects float, but somehow they can't just leave the school? Like, why? Why not? There isn't this magical barrier that's keeping them in or anything. They could just blast the teachers and fuck off. Like, they've already murdered the principal. That should be enough for them to leave, right? He's the one who's in control of everything according to the movie's logic, and he's the one who dictates everyone, so surely him being dead means you could just leave. I know they kind of explain that away by making his son take over, but they don't explain that until like half an hour after the guy's gone, so I don't get it. And if there are people going to say in the comments that it's all just a metaphor for how when you're in school you can feel in control of your life when around your peers, but sometimes the authority drags you back down to reality and makes you feel as though you're powerless and can't do anything, that would only make sense if the school was using some kind of method of repressing her powers and keeping her there. But they don't even know she has her powers, apparently. No one says, hey, you know that crybaby girl? Yeah, she's some kind of alien creature. We might want to deal with that. They either don't know or see her doing something like levitating her bully and don't give a shit. Like, yeah, they drug Crybaby a couple of times, but it's not to make her suppress her powers. They do it to disorientate her slightly because she's misbehaving, like they do to all the kids. I mean, if this is supposed to be metaphorical, it doesn't even make sense as a metaphor. Listen, I'm well aware that Melanie tends to make music videos that don't necessarily have the most coherent storylines, but you kinda get away with that in music videos. Music videos are not always supposed to have coherent stories, they're just supposed to be a kind of advertisement for the song itself, and they can tell a story, but it's not really necessary when making a music video. With movies though, if you're going to do this kind of surrealist musical, you need to make sure that everything in the movie is clear and easy to follow, even if you want to insert symbolism rather than showing something outright. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to make 100% sense to the audience member, but if you want people to follow what's actually going on and be able to understand what their eyes are kind of seeing, then you need to make sure that the plot makes some kind of sense. If people have plot holes everywhere around them when watching the movie, they are not going to be focusing on the metaphors and the symbolism that you're throwing in there. And plus, if you do this, then the messages become very flawed. You can't make a movie speaking about how authority represses the youth and use the education system to control kids and teenagers while trapping them in these facilities when in your world that you've established you could easily leave and defy them and escape. I can't take in the message that teachers can and sometimes do take advantage of their students in a sexual way and make them feel vulnerable when the victim of this in your movie murders the teacher in cold blood, showing her taking back power and not being a victim anymore, and it's never mentioned again. Because when this happens in real life, that shit don't happen. And the fact that it's never mentioned again just makes it seem like a random plot point that didn't matter. I won't care about your feminist message that women can be anything when you only mention it once in your movie and then never address it again, and don't prove the people that you're trying to discredit wrong in any way. There are so many messages in this film that are just kind of shoved in, like the music video segments that don't actually mean anything because they're mentioned once and then they're dropped. And it's a shame because Melanie is clearly trying to make a good point about how society is today in her eyes, and is trying to give certain groups some kind of confidence and set an example, showing them that they don't need to conform to these roles that society gives them. Like popular girls, you don't have to starve yourselves and follow your friends' every actions just to be a popular girl. Kids, you don't have to be oppressed by your principal and the school system, and there needs to be a change to it. So stand up for yourselves if you think you're being unjustly crucified. Students, don't fuck your teachers! But like I said, the messages are buried under the fact that they're shoved in and the plot is nonsensical. And I'm sorry, but we need to talk about the acting in this thing. It's not great. I genuinely thought that Melanie would be a good actress from how she is in her music videos, but I guess since she doesn't really speak in them, my judgment was clouded by my love for her work. In reality, she's not a great actress, and I hate saying that because I think she's so talented, but she's just not a good actress. Well, I mean, she's not great in the calmer scenes when she's just simply speaking to her friends. When shit hits the fan, she can be kind of good, which is a bit weird to me, because usually actors who aren't good at acting in calmer scenes where not much is actually happening are even worse in scenes where they have to put more effort in, like emotional scenes or scenes where they act crazy. But Melanie is kind of good in those scenes. But yet again, most of the time they're in music video segments, so we can't hear her speak, so maybe it's just because her face is just so expressive. I mean, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, I'm just saying this for comedic effect, but the bitch looks crazy, come on. But other than that though, everyone else is pretty terrible constantly. I do like the fact that she clearly picked a really diverse cast, but that doesn't mean that the acting talent is good in any way. Especially her best friend character, who is just kinda shockingly terrible. And it's weird because the actress Emma Harvey has been in other movies and TV shows before, and is even a producer of a few short films. So she has got at least some experience in the industry, but her acting was so wooden and forced that it was really distracting. It wasn't The Room levels of terrible, but damn, it was bad. I mean, I haven't watched anything else that she's been in or produced, so maybe they're terrible too. I wouldn't like to assume that, but I wouldn't expect this kind of acting from someone who's been in the industry for a hot minute. I'd expect some kind of improvement. I'm very confused as to why Melanie hired her for the role. She has a lot of screen time compared to all the other side characters, so it just seems a bit odd. But hey, I don't want to sound like a massive negative Nancy. I know that this channel is supposed to be for reviewing terrible movies, but I don't consider this in the same category as other movies I've reviewed here, which is why this is a review, not a full-blown what is this video. So I'm gonna say some genuinely positive things about this movie that I liked, because it would be unfair to only mention the bad stuff. Like I mentioned before, the cinematography was epic. I love the way that it was shot. Like I keep saying, Melanie's music videos are always amazingly shot and look incredible, and the editing is always on point, and the movie was just a longer version of that. It has the Melanie style, and you can tell that she put a hell of a lot of effort into how the movie looked and sounded. There were quite a few interesting shots as well that I really liked, and I feel as though every single part of the movie, even if it wasn't a music video segment, was done in a very creative way. Just like the cinematography, the music was banging. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I wasn't as in love with K-12 the album as I was the Crybaby album, but like I thought, after watching the music videos of each of the songs and watching the movie, I started to love them all more and more. I may not relate to the songs as much as I do in the other album, but I keep catching myself singing Strawberry Shortcake and Class Fight every now and then. Plus, I'm listening to the album more and more every day and finding new appreciation for it, so TLDR, the music was pretty good. I'm not one of those people who think that music is necessarily bad if you need to listen to it a few times to actually appreciate it. I mean, that's how I fell in love with Muse and the Gorillaz. Well, I mean, other than seeing Muse live, because their shows are fucking nuts. I do also love that it feels like a Melanie Martinez product. As much as the plot and the acting and the storyline and progression didn't really impress me, the feeling I got while watching it was reminiscent of when I first discovered Melanie and was excited in a very different way. It just felt very Melanie Martinez. And it's not like every aspect of the movie was bad, it's just because I watch movies with a very critical eye now that even the littlest stuff can get on my nerves, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. I would probably watch it again. Listen, I'm not making this review to be a dickhead and shit on Melanie's work, despite the fact that I'm sure most people will probably comment that I am, and to say, you know, leave her alone. She worked really hard on the movie, even though they haven't watched the whole video and haven't heard me say the positive stuff. But I like Melanie. In fact, I love her and her music, and I'm still a huge fan. I just also want to be honest because I love her so much. I wanted to express what I felt, and whether you like that or not, I did it, so yeah, you can't change that, I'm sorry. I think that if you love her work, you will love this movie if you haven't already watched it, which I highly doubt if you're already a fan of her. And if you like surreal movies and don't mind how nuts the film could potentially be, and trust me, it is pretty crazy, you might also like it too. but most other people either won't get it or will be too distracted by the things I've already mentioned. I'm personally very excited for whatever Melanie decides to do next because she's off to a decent start. I think if she can accept the potential criticism that she gets for this movie, not necessarily mine, then she could really improve and become an amazing director and actress. All good things come with time, and she is very young and very talented, and I'm pretty sure that she can do it. And like I said, she's off to a pretty good start, so it looks promising. Anyway, thank y'all for watching. This one wasn't as detailed as my usual reviews, but like I said, I didn't feel like it needed to be. I'm already working on my next What Is This video, and trust me, it's gonna be a good one. I've already decided what movie it is, and oh boy, this one's gonna be a ride. So look out for that. I'll be giving updates on Twitter, so defo follow me on that if you want updates. Maybe follow my Instagram too for good measure, because sometimes I post stories about how I'm working on there, and plus I want clout. See you later, everybody. Bye!